Hi, let's discuss about using the fetch API in useEffect hook. So far we discussed that useEffect is the right place to go and make a network interaction calls, i.e. fetching the data from backend and populating our UI. Before we discuss about how to consume the fetch API in React.js in the useEffect hook, let's discuss about what is fetch API. Fetch API is a modern JavaScript API for making network requests. I.e., before JavaScript introduced the fetch API, we are depending upon external packages like Axios and Ajax to get the data from the backend. Once the fetch API is natively introduced to JavaScript, we don't have to depend upon any external packages. So it's a clear and more flexible alternative to the traditional XML HTTP request. And fetch API is the widely and commonly used APIs to get the data from the backend. So how does the fetch API look like? So here fetch API typically accepts the API which you want to call. So it may be orders, customers, posts, anything like that. And it has two then request and one catch handles. So two then and watch catch. So whenever you make a request to this API, the first response contains whether the request is successful. Like if it is a successful, it will have 200. If it's a failure, it will have either 400 and 500. 400 indicating it's a client side failure, 500 indicating it's a server side failure. So we'll be able to get from the response, we should be able to see what exactly the response. If it is 200 and if it is successful, we are going to get this second handle to get the data. So here is the place where we'll get actual data. If it's a customers, will get the customers customers JSON. If it's a orders, we are going to get the orders JSON. For any reason, if there is any failure or if there is any error in the due course of the request, we have a catch handle where we are going to get the exact error for the failure and we can actually handle the error here. Fetch API follows the promise based syntax, i.e. it is very easy and handy tool to work with the asynchronous code. It has then and catch methods to handle the response and errors. So when we have fetch, the first then is able to get the response. We should be able to check what is the status, whether it is 200, 400, 500. And again, we can even look at, peek at what is the content type, whether it is a JSON or an XML. By default, most of the response types are JSON. If we can go and get the JSON response, and once we have a successful JSON, it will call the next then method with actual data. The response object represents the response of the request. So it provides more methods and properties to work with the response data. For example, if you say response.json, from the stream it will try to get the object in the JSON format so that we can read the data and populate our UI. Okay, let's deep dive into this fetch API with a live example. Most of you have heard about JSON placeholder. So this is a mock REST API calls. For example, if you want to consume any APIs like post, orders, anything like that, you should be able to use this JSON placeholder as a mock data and you should be able to use it in the front end. So if you see here, when you say JSON placeholder dot post, we should be able to make a get request which is going to return all the posts like the ID of the post, title of the post and body of the post. So this is a sample REST API which is going to give the posts that are available for at our disposal for consumption in any of our front-end API. If you see the URL request, looks like this. So what we do now, we are going to create a new component called as post list component, being a functional component using the use effect hook and using the fetch API. We are going to consume this and we are going to display it in the UI. Let's see. Let's switch back to our let's go and try to create a new folder called as fetch API and create a new component with name postlist.js. And what was our main objective? So what we want to clearly try here was create post list component consuming the API from JSON placeholder type code dot post and display the post in the browser. So that is what is our main objective. We are going to import and we are going to create a functional component called as post list, and here we have the list of posts in the starting. So as we said, we should be first, let's go and try to create a use effect to get our post. So we'll go and import the post, and first we need to create a state and use effect for that. So for that, let's go and import use effect comma use state from React, and let's define to a state to hold the post, and again define a use effect method to call the fetch API. This is a fetch post method which we are trying to call the post, and then we have a then method which will try to see. I think here you can check whether it's a response, whether it's a success, failure, and we can even have a catch. So what we are doing here is we are not looking into all those things, assuming that the post API exists and it is going to give the successful response. We are going to say response.json. What exactly it will do, it is going to give us the uh, once you go and fetch the response, it will say whether it is 200, whether it contains the data or not. Once you say response.json, it actually going to from the stream it is going to get the posts data. So now we can go and display those posts here. So what exactly we are going to do here, we have a inside this div we have an order list where we are saying post.map. So we have already seen in the book list that how to map the post and trying to display the data details. Look at it as a post.id, post.title, and even we can go and discuss display the multiple items also, but we can as of now I'm trying to restrict only to display the title. Okay, then we need to go and export this to post list, and if you want to display we need to go and import into our app.js. We can go and say post list, it will go and try to import it for us automatically and try to display it in our render method. So as of now I'm commenting other code. Let's go and try to display the post list. So if your app is already not running, you can go and say npm start. In our case it is already running. So if you observe, it is displaying all the posts coming from the backend. So we are able to see this bulleted point because we are using a list item here. Otherwise we are able to get all the titles of the post from the backend. Let's go and try to debug this code. Let's go and inspect, go to the console, clear it off, and I want to focus more on the network tab now. I'm going to clear it off again. Let's go and try to reload our page. Now try to monitor our network requests. So when you try to load your application, it has locals and all those stuff. But if you observe, it has made a request to the post method. So if you closely pay attention here, we are trying to make a request from JSON placeholder.post from our index.html whenever we made a request to this. So if you see in the response, we got all the JSON of the post list in our response, and it has id, title and body, and we're actually using the title and id as the key, and we're trying to display it in our UI. So whenever you try to make a request to the JSON placeholder.post, if you try to observe in your network traffic, this is the network tab. You can make a note of this. In the network tab, you're able to see the posts that are responded. So post that, what exactly we are trying to do. So once we got the post as a response, now I'm going to search for the post list. Okay, here you can have these breakpoints. Yeah, I think so. If you want to have breakpoints, you should ideally have the explicit functions instead of the arrow functions. It is very difficult to discuss debug the arrow functions. So so when you try to reload, we should be able to see that, okay, yes, we are able to see the response. And so we are able to see that our fetch method has been hit. And if you want to debug, you should be able to define this arrow function as a multi-line statement, or you can define this as a traditional function so that you can have your breakpoint here. So in summary, in useEffect, you should be able to use the fetch API and get the response. Once you convert the response to a JSON, we'll get the actual data, whether it's a post, orders and customers. And we are using the set post method to go and update the post, and whenever the post has been updated, your UI is going to get reflected. And we are displaying the title into the UI, and at the same time we are making the ID as the key. So you should be able to debug and display the data in your UI.